Well, it's time to join F. Young Ekop for this week's interview segment of the show. Enjoy it.
On Focus today, we're talking about the electricity sector of the economy. Very unreliable sector, some people say, and that leads us to customer eligibility that Ministry of Power has put in place, for GenCos to be able to relate. My guest today is the CEO of Idfon Power Engineering Consultants, Engineer Idowu Oyebanjo. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me on the program.
I wish that you look at a periscopic level of electricity in the economy. What is your take?
Thank you for that question. The privatization of the Nigerian electricity supply industry is now for 5 years, and so it's a good time to take a review of what has happened. Before we delve into that, we need to look at the history. The Nigerian power sector was at its low ebb because we came in from a situation where there was no power, we have erratic supply, people don't pay their bills, and so government thought about a way to solve the problems. And it was generally accepted that privatization of the electricity supply industry was the way to go. So in 2013, the electricity supply industry was largely privatized. But the main problems of the sector remained there, unsolved. And that's why 5 years down the line, we still have this problem of erratic supply.
Okay, now, true that the sector still remains that leads us to why people think the sector is providing unreliable services. Do you buy that?
Yeah, indeed. Customer satisfaction is at low ebb. There is customer apathy in the industry because people don't have electricity. There is estimated billing, which makes people so apathetic about the power industry. Essentially, the main problem is network losses. There's so much loss. The network losses in the Nigerian power sector is high. And talking about losses, we talk about the aggregate technical, collection, and commercial losses in the Nigerian electricity supply industry. So
now the government comes up with what it calls eligibility, customer eligibility issue. Enlighten us how it is and how it will work.
Thank you very much for that. The Minister of Power, Works and Housing, in May 2017, declared customer eligibility according to Section 27 of the Electric Power Sector Reform Act of 2005, EPSRA, where he invoked his power to declare customer eligibility. Customer eligibility in 4 categories, actually, and for customers who are high or intensive energy users who consume at least 2 megawatts of electricity, which is 2,000 kilowatts of electricity every month. So you are talking of big users of electricity, the industries, the smelting companies, aluminum smelting companies. You talk about steel industries, cement factories, and big companies, really. Government institutions, universities, high consumers of electricity.
Let's go deep and see the workability of that system and possibly the expected benefits.
Yeah, so essentially we have generating companies in the current system contracted to supply electricity to the Nigerian electricity supply industry through the agreements they have with Nigerian bulk electricity trader, which receives the electricity from them and then pass it on to the network. However, this regulation, the eligible customer regulation in the Nigerian electricity supply industry, when properly implemented, we allow independent suppliers of electricity, So we are talking about the existing GENCOs, independent power plants, distributed generators, off-grid renewable systems, mini-grid systems. All of these independent power supply units can directly supply customers on and off the power grid in Nigeria through bilateral agreement.
Let's just know some of these problems. What are some of these impediments?
Well, some of the issues will have to do with the kind of bilateral agreement. We have issues such as the cost effectivity of tariffs. We have also the competition transition charges, and we have the integrity of the network. For example, if the network has so much losses, then if you keep sending electricity through that same piece of network, you are still not going to get customer satisfaction. There's also metering. This the government is trying to solve with by means of the regulation that was released in April by NERC, called Meter Asset Provider Regulation. So in which case meters will be provided to all consumers of electricity, and that should hopefully solve part of the losses we are talking about.
If we should take that metering issue, it really surprises many consumers. Why the government, I mean the operating agencies, find it difficult to bring out a basic sellable item to the consumer?
Well, estimated billing is a very big issue in Nigeria, because recently the lawmakers made a move to criminalize anyone that gives estimated billing. So this has gone off in Nigeria for so long, and now it has to be stopped. And that is why NERC, that's Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, has introduced the Meter Asset Provider Regulation, wherein investors who have the money will buy, which means they will finance the procurement, installation, maintenance, and servicing of meters to customers, so that the discos, they don't bear this huge burden. You see, the electricity supply industry is one that is capital intensive, and the discos do not have the financial muscle to pull this through. They need a lot of assistance.
In the Nigerian electricity market, where, the mix, how much of that do we, take to the marketplace? For instance, I believe that new developments have been able to bring up new ideas. So let's look at Nigeria. The sources of electricity supplies, generation, how many are there in Nigeria?
Well, we have a lot of mix of energy sources in Nigeria. Of course, we have gas, which is predominant. We have coal, also we have hydro. We have natural resources, so we have renewable sources of energy, solar, as well as others. So there are regulations that make it possible for us to harness these resources. I think the bulk of the problem is the awareness of people about this, and this is why we come in to educate the people so that they can become aware of all these sources that we have and they can tap into.
The latest of this mix, I think it is solar, and to my knowledge, solar is being utilized highly in the developed world, and I think we also have ability. We have a lot of sunshine for so many hours in different parts of the country. Tell me how far we can rely on solar electricity.
Well, the bulk of, we can rely on solar because it has been useful in other parts of the world. We have, like you said, the resources. I think the major problem had been that of storage, wherein the industries will not be able to have supply overnight. So if the world develops storage, which the Western nations are trying hard on now, if we can crack storage, then solar will be optimum. Having said that, we can still use it throughout the day when we have sunshine. And we have regulations that permit them. We have mini grids, and we have on-grid and off-grid solar power systems, which are coming on board.
I'm wondering whether Nigeria as a nation could make use of its Atlantic water to generate electricity. And I think that this Atlantic waters surround about 6 or 7 states in the southern part of the country. Can we, make use of that reliable source of water?
Oh, well, investment in hydro generation requires, among other things, the run of water and the height and suitable dam to implement such scheme. And I think the experts in that area can speak more about how they can harness the waters of the Atlantic Ocean. In the Atlantic Ocean also we have tidal barrages that can also be taken as a form of tapping into energy sources. Yeah.
Okay, we want to round up this discussion. Tell me, what's your outlook for the electricity market of Nigeria is?
Well, the outlook is fine. The international community is looking at Nigeria. The focus is on our privatization. With the implementation of the eligible customer regulation, with the implementation of the meter asset provider regulation, we start to close the gap in our network losses. With deliberate intervention in fixing network losses, the Nigerian electricity supply industry will become bankable with proper consumer awareness, where people have their meters and they pay only for what they consume, and there's transparency everywhere. Then investors will come into Nigeria to revamp the system, and then we'll have incremental supply first, and later we have stable power, and later we have uninterrupted power supply in Nigerian electricity industry.
Well, let's leave it there. Thank you for coming on this interview.
Thank you.
Engineer Idowu Oyebanjo, he is the CEO of IDFON Engineering Consultants, and he's been my guest on this program. Back to you.
That's our package for you today on Business Week. Thank you very much for watching. I'll leave you with the graphics of the commodities market. Join us again next week for a fresh edition. Thank you very much. I'm Tolu Lokpe Ogujobi.